This is going to be a build showcase video for a shaman focused on running around in Spriggan form. So here, the character I have right now is level 77, and I'd say the build can essentially be complete around level 75. This is because we're focused mainly on a couple key passive skills. Here, Ascendant Circle, you want to have maxed out because we're going to be running about 20 to 25 totems constantly, and so this is going to give us a massive spell damage boost. Protective Circle is also going to give us a massive protection boost, and then the third one here, Silent Protector, is going to give us a large armor boost while we have totems out. So these are the three key passives to look for in this build, with some extra armor, mobility, extra spell damage here. Since we'll be running Ice Thorns as our main damage source, Ice Thorns and Avalanche, they both do cold damage. Shattered Heavens is going to make them deal additional damage. Also, mana and mana regeneration is going to be important, so I'm picking those up where I can. In the Primalist tree, we're just focusing on attunement resistances, spell damage, and totem buffs. Because we need to obtain Spriggan form, we need at least 15 points in the Druid tree. Here I focus to get on attunement and mana. A little bit of physical damage. This could easily be traded for bark skin points, potentially blood claws, and then I put 10 points physical damage to spells, so here's some more spell damage. What this build is focused on doing is having as many Thorn Totems out at once to give us all the boosts that we've talked about through the skills. Forested Expanse is going to let our Thorn Totem drop 5 at a time. When we have the Grove Mind ability, they all drop at once. Everything else that I have pointed out here is just to aid in having as many totems out at a time, so make them last longer, make their cooldown lower, make them cost less. You could also opt to make them do more poison damage if you have enough mana, efficiency, and mana regen. You could have them do poison to make them deal some amount of damage, or potentially even shred armor. You'd have to drop quite a bit here, but shred armor to make your physical spells do more damage. With our main damage coming from Ice Thorns, I want to explain the choices I've made here. Thorn Shield is taken because we can have a 40% chance for every Ice Thorns that gets cast to be cast twice, essentially. Well, 2 or more times. They can repeat more than once. Now here, we're also enhancing the armor that each stack of Ice Thorns gives us. I've taken Dense Thicket to make so the AoE around me is much larger. I'm not worrying about the homing because we make so they no longer home with the Thorn Burst, but we have a lot of thorns being shot out and they travel a long distance. You could potentially do something where you try to get Piercing Cold if you want them to home and pierce targets and then focus on cold damage. But I focused more on the defensive side here, and increasing the duration gives us a longer leeway for our armor buff to last. What brings this build together are 2 nodes in the Spriggan skill tree. Spike Totem makes the healing totems that the Spriggan can drop. Inherit skills from the Thorn tree that we've statted out, which includes the additional totem drops from Forested Expanse as well as Grove Mind. Second Wind makes healing totem drop 5 instead of 4 totems when you've pointed it out. Here we get increased duration again for healing totems. The other side of the tree makes so that our enhances our root wall. Frozen Grounds and Permafrost give our each root wall section, each segment has a 40% chance per second to cast Ice Thorns. Now remember, Ice Thorns is going to give us a Thorn Shield buff. They do stack, and they have a 40% chance to repeat when they explode. Unfettered Growth adds 2 additional segments, so this gives us more chances per second. Ring of Nature is a choice you don't have to make. I found that a straight line of root wall was unwieldy and hard to have room for an entire ring, and easily blocked yourself off from walking in a path. So this changes the shape into a semicircle, making it more usable. The last option here is a single target damage. Sometimes large health enemies can take a while to bring down for me, so the Avalanche is taken as a physical cold spell that'll deal high single target damage when buffed with, once again, Ascendant Circle, giving us about 1,000 spell damage here. These are taken for usability. The avalanches hit the ground sooner, more boulders fall, pummeling is optional, larger area, greater area of effect. Again, it's all usability, and then here I have mana efficiency. Eventually, when I get better gear that has more mana efficiency or mana regen on it, I might be able to take points out of this, potentially convert the damage to physical, take freeze multiplier, which will count for stun, and be able to stun things better. The last skill is completely optional. I've gone for Storm Totem because the time we spend outside of Spriggan form to regenerate mana, this can do some decent damage. The movement buff is nice to maneuver while you can potentially be vulnerable. The shock chance will give them stun, debuff their stun avoidance, as well as their elemental protections. So everything here is just to aid the in-between time when I'm out of Spriggan form. Another optional choice would be Tornado, where you can take Aspect of the Storm to gain yourself increased mana regen, enhance the duration of Aspect of the Storm, so that when you're out of Spriggan form you can regenerate some mana faster, potentially. I've opted to go for Storm Totem, and I'm enjoying using that. So the way this build works is you start off by casting your Thorn Totems, and you'll notice instantly my protections have gone way higher than they were before. This is because taking the Shaman Mastery doubles your elemental protections, and I gain 50 protections for every totem active. So here I gain 250 protections, 500 elemental protections. Now, once we go Spriggan form, we have 2 charges to cast Healing Totem, which are spike totems. And again, our protections jump up. You'll notice it's already off cooldown. We now have 20 totems active.
Impossible.
25 totems active. And here you can keep about 25 if you're swapping out to reactivate your normal Thorn Totems. You can get 25. You can spike up to about 30 or 35 totems, because whenever you go back into Spriggan form, you have both charges of Healing Totem ready. So here you can get a massive amount of protections easily, double your armor, and that's just where it begins. So the next way this works, that's all to get spell damage and protections for each totem you have out. The next part of this is that when you cast Root Wall, here you get mini sections, and you'll see I end up with autocasting Nova of Ice Thorns. And because Ice Thorns is giving me a buff on armor, here let's get totems out, so I double my armor from, again, the Silent Protector tree. The armor fluctuates quite a bit, but you'll notice going from 60% armor up to, if you put out multiple sets of root walls, 80%, in some cases 90%, all depending on how many repeats you're getting and how many successful casts are happening per second. You can get quite a large amount of armor, essentially for free. So here we have large defensive buffs and large offensive buffs coming in, and the goal is to spend as much time in Spriggan form as possible, so that when we hop out of Spriggan form we can regenerate mana, cast our Thorn Totems again, and enter Spriggan form. only using Avalanche to deal massive single target damage. Currently I've seen up to crits of about 14,000 with a single boulder of Avalanche. I'm going to do a quick monolith run. Here you can see I've been doing runs already, farming keys for the arena. Note that the enemies do have a chance to dodge, so not everything is going to die immediately as I run past it. Let's re-roll these and take... These are both extremely scary. Okay, so we'll take the lesser of the two evils and give it a go. I have my settings turned down because this build does have a lot of things going on, and even though I have a nice computer, the frame rate caused by this build is not the best. So I tend to cast as many totems as possible and cast the root wall behind me as I run. This is because I don't want to block myself as I run forward, and the actual walls themselves don't really matter. Everything that I'm casting is just to provide self buffs. And because all the damage is coming from Ice Thorns and spell damage buffs, the totems themselves do no damage either, since totems gain damage from minion buffs. Here I'm going to cast Avalanche on the boss. He's got so much health. Wonderful showcase. So here there's a vulnerable period if you don't re-enter Spriggan form to cast Root Wall again. There's a time where you don't have Ice Thorns on you. Ooh, we're gonna get out of this. There we go, some of them are finally hitting. The dodge chance makes things difficult. All those dodges. But once they were hitting, started doing really nice damage. Let's go ahead and exit here and go into the arena. Quickly grab the crafting materials and get out. All of my gear is essentially focused on getting glancing blow chance. I have not been farming gear for very long, so most everything just has a little bit of glancing blow on them. A little bit has been crafted up. This is a placeholder because I don't have a good amulet. A little bit of mana, a little bit of stun avoidance. But you can see I have a nice 80% glancing blow chance. Block is nothing special. But even if I remove all my gear, you can see that the stats that this build obtains are rather impressive just from the massive amount of totems and Ice Thorns being cast. So here I have roughly nothing. And getting my totems out and Ice Thorns casting 65%, 80%, 57%, 75%, probably averaging around 60% armor. This is all naked stats. Let's see what the spell damage goes up to. Here, 1000% spell damage, naked. So we look for a weapon that has some mana cost reduction to make so our totems are essentially free when in Spriggan form. I think they cost about 3 mana for me right now. For all the glancing blow chance we can get. Here I have a % increased elemental protection ring to further enhance what I'm already stacking and make myself as tanky as possible during my vulnerable periods. Another important piece here of choosing Shaman over Druid, even though it is mostly a Spriggan form class, is that I'm staying in Druid, so the damage reduction for 2 seconds is not that big a deal. 20% health and mana, okay, that might be nice, but the -5 totem mana cost is incredibly important to stay in Spriggan form as long as possible, as well as that doubling elemental protections. So here, let's actually do a naked arena run. I typically like to find a corner. The only problem I've had with this build is that Ice Thorns casts on a horizontal plane, and so I actually have to run down the hill for it to deal damage. But you can see, even without base spell damage improvements from gear, the stacked Ice Thorns are doing an incredible amount of work. You want to leave Spriggan form by losing all your mana on a cast of Root Wall so that you gain the mana back. 60 mana, 50 or 60 mana is what it gives when leaving Spriggan form due to mana loss. That way you make sure you have the armor and cold protection as well. You get a massive amount of cold protection because both sources of buffs. But when you're in human form, since you can't cast Root Wall, you're not going to be able to get stacks of Ice Thorns easily. You could self-cast, but it's not very fast. So you want to be able to have these going and repeating as long as possible while you're in human form. And to do that, you want to exit Spriggan form with a cast of Root Wall, like so. So all of these will be active while I'm in human form. And you can immediately go on to the next wave to keep your setup going. And if you want to kill things fast, you can just drop a bomb on them, and they all go down relatively easily. Best case is to just repeat going into Spriggan form and not use Avalanche at all. But some cases, like when you get the Wengari Matriarchs or other really high health enemies, using Avalanche is necessary. This is why I'm going to look for probably a wand that can have some mana regen and the hybrid mana cost and spell damage affix instead of a scepter like I currently have, to make so my mana gets up faster when I'm out of Spriggan form. There we go. This is what happens when you don't go back in Spriggan form fast enough to get your armor stacks again. So let's do this again, with gear this time. You can see, if played properly, holds its own against at-level content. Obviously, low-level arena, but this guy has made it to, at about level 74, 73, 74, I made it to arena level 126, and I died because I walked into AoEs. So I made a mistake when I was in my vulnerable state of human and not Spriggan. I think it could push quite a bit further than that with the meager gear that I have right now. So the basic gameplay. I wanted to do a quick showcase for this build because I thought it had quite a few interesting mechanics all playing together. I thought about also calling this build my thesis on why Werebear form sucks. Because I'm only using half of the Spriggan skills, and it's already more interactive and can do more than anything Werebear was able to offer me. This is because the Spriggan tree has multiple skills that allow your transformed skills to interact with other skill trees. I find that really interesting, and Werebear form sits on swipe cooldown and is not interesting. the way the timer works out for these form shifts is that as long as you have about 70-75 mana when you go back into Spriggan form, since you don't regenerate mana in Spriggan form, you'll be able to continually rotate in and out of Spriggan form without any downtime on root wall. So here, my character's name is Shaman, and it is a Shaman class. If I look at the ladders on softcore, you'll see I'm, where is it? Here, 128. I was able to get to on my first attempt with this build once I started getting points in Ascendant Circle at Arena. So with better play, better gear, I'm sure this can push much higher. Hoping to have a high health enemy spawn so I can show off the damage from Avalanche. But we haven't got any large monsters. Everything's just kind of melting. And I'm taking no damage. This is how all the lower waves go. You can see, even with everything on low, getting frame drops when nothing else I've done on high settings in this game has given me any trouble. this build is giving me frame drops. Is there anything I can... There we go. 10, 11k with only 15 totems at the time. And you can get up, you can hold around 20-25 easily. If you really work at all your timings, you could probably get 25 to 30 average. Here we go. Let's drop out of here and dead. And dead. And dead. There's another fairly sizable enemy type. 10 totems out. Anyway, this is the basic idea. It's rinse and repeat. The gameplay is pretty one-dimensional because all you're doing is making sure that you get enough mana when you enter Spriggan form so that by the time you leave Spriggan form with a root wall cast, Spriggan form will be off cooldown for you before your last root wall goes away. And that's just to keep your armor buff up. Thanks for watching.